Welcome back to Scary Stories for Sleep. I hope you're having a relaxing evening. As always, tonight's story is fictional and created for entertainment purposes, though some details may be inspired by real events. If you're already settled in, then sit back, listen to the rain, and let your mind wander. Tonight's story is about a sleepover that started like any other and ended with a photograph nobody could explain. The detective slid a photograph across the table and asked me a question I couldn't answer. How many girls were at the sleepover? I looked down at the picture. 5. I knew there had been 5. Me, Rachel, Emma, Sarah, and Caitlin. But the photograph showed 6. The sixth person wasn't standing in the background. She wasn't hidden in a doorway. She was lying on the floor among us, covered with a blanket like she'd been sleeping there all night. The detective pointed to the timestamp in the corner, 2:14 a.m. Then he pointed to the girl. Nobody can identify her. I stared at the photograph. The more I looked at it, the worse it became. Because the girl wasn't the only problem. The photo had been taken inside Rachel's bedroom, at 2:14 in the morning, while all of us were asleep. The camera angle was from the corner of the room, a corner that had been empty that night. That's when the detective told me where they'd found it. Inside a section of wall hidden behind Rachel's bedroom closet. And suddenly, every strange thing that happened during that sleepover made sense. Unfortunately, by then it was a year too late. I was 14 when it happened. Rachel had invited 4 of us to her birthday sleepover near the end of summer break. She lived about 20 minutes outside town in an older neighborhood surrounded by trees. The houses weren't isolated enough to feel rural, but they were spread out enough that things felt quiet. Too quiet sometimes. I remember noticing something strange before I even got out of my mom's car. Rachel's bedroom window faced the driveway. As we pulled in, I glanced up and saw someone standing behind the curtains. I assumed it was Rachel waiting for us. Then the figure stepped back. The curtain closed. A few seconds later, Rachel came running out the front door to greet us. I didn't think much about it at the time. People move around houses. You don't immediately assume something is wrong. The sleepover started normally. Pizza, movies, birthday presents, the usual stuff. There were 5 of us all together. Rachel, Emma, Sarah, Caitlin, and me. Rachel's parents seemed friendly enough, but there was something unusual about them that night. They seemed distracted. Not stressed, not angry, just constantly listening. Several times during dinner, Rachel's dad would stop talking in the middle of a sentence and glance toward the ceiling, like he thought he heard something. Nobody else seemed to notice. Later, when Rachel showed us around the house, we reached the end of the second-floor hallway. There was a narrow white door built into the wall. It looked like a closet. Sarah reached for the handle. Rachel grabbed her wrist so fast that Sarah actually flinched. The hallway went completely silent. Rachel immediately let go. Sorry. She laughed awkwardly. Nobody else did. What's in there? Sarah asked. Storage. The answer came too quickly. Rachel turned and walked away before anyone could ask another question. I remember looking back at the door as we followed her. It wasn't the door itself that bothered me. It was Rachel. She looked genuinely nervous. The rest of the evening felt normal again, at least for a while. Around 10 o'clock, we were hanging out in Rachel's bedroom when a loud bang echoed somewhere above us. The sound rattled a framed photo on her dresser. Everyone jumped. What was that? Emma asked. Rachel looked up at the ceiling. Not surprised. Not confused. Annoyed. Old house, she said. A few minutes later, another bang sounded overhead. Then another. The noises slowly moved across the ceiling, like something heavy shifting its weight. Then everything went quiet. Nobody mentioned it again, but I noticed Rachel checking the ceiling every few minutes afterward. Near midnight, Sarah asked where Rachel's younger brother was. At a friend's house, Rachel answered. Sarah frowned. No, he's not. What? I saw someone in the hallway earlier. The room immediately got quieter. When, like 20 minutes ago, Rachel shook her head. You probably saw one of us. Sarah looked unconvinced. The weird thing was, I had noticed something too. Earlier that evening, I'd seen a shadow pass beneath the crack of Rachel's bedroom door. At the time, I'd assumed it was her brother. Now I wasn't so sure. Nobody felt like discussing it further. Instead, we decided to play hide and seek. In hindsight, that was probably the moment everything changed. The upstairs lights were turned off. The hallway became almost completely dark. I ended up being the seeker. As I searched the second floor, I passed the white door again. This time it was slightly open, only a few inches. I stopped walking. Earlier, Rachel practically panicked when Sarah touched it. Now it sat partially open. I pushed it wider. Behind it wasn't a closet. It was a staircase, a narrow staircase leading upward. I stared for several seconds. The house already had a second floor. Why was there another staircase? Before I could investigate, someone grabbed my shoulder. I spun around. Rachel. She looked upset. Actually upset. Not playful. Not embarrassed. Upset. Don't go up there. Why? It's not safe. What's up there? Rachel hesitated. Then she said something that only made me more curious. My parents don't want anyone up there. That wasn't an answer, and she knew it. But she wasn't going to tell me more. Eventually, the sleepover wound down. We spread sleeping bags across Rachel's floor, turned off the lights, and settled in for the night. Most of the others fell asleep quickly. I didn't. Sleeping in unfamiliar places always took me forever. Sometime after 2 in the morning, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, careful, measured. They stopped outside Rachel's bedroom. I checked my phone. 2:11 a.m. The footsteps remained there for several seconds. Then I heard something worse. The doorknob slowly turned. Not enough to open the door, just enough to test it. I sat perfectly still. The handle returned to its normal position. A few moments later, the footsteps moved away, toward the staircase. Then silence. The next morning, I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. Almost. Then Sarah spoke during breakfast. Who was walking around upstairs last night? Rachel's father dropped his spoon. The sound seemed unnaturally loud. Nobody spoke for several seconds. His reaction looked automatic, like he'd responded before thinking. Eventually, he forced a smile. Probably pipes. Nobody believed that, especially not Rachel. For the rest of the day, she barely spoke. Around noon, I finally got her alone. I asked about the staircase. This time she answered. Sort of. My grandparents used to rent that room. What room? The one upstairs. To who? Rachel looked away. A guy. What happened to him? She hesitated. Then she said something that immediately caught my attention. My parents don't like talking about him. That wasn't what I asked. And both of us knew it. What happened? Rachel lowered her voice. He disappeared. I waited for her to continue. She didn't. Disappeared how? No one knows. That answer bothered me for the rest of the afternoon, because it didn't sound like a ghost story. It sounded like a family secret. Later, while everyone else was outside, curiosity finally got the better of me. I went back to the staircase. The door wasn't locked. I climbed the steps. At the top was a small room. And Rachel had lied. It wasn't storage. The room looked lived in. There was a bed, a dresser, a lamp, bookshelves. Dust covered most of it, but not all of it. That was the first thing I noticed. A layer of dust coated the furniture, except for a narrow path leading toward the far wall. Someone had walked through recently. I followed the path. The wall looked ordinary, until I noticed faint scratches near the edge. I pressed against it. The panel moved. Behind it was a narrow space between the walls, a hidden passage, and that's when I understood where the noises had been coming from. The passage connected directly to the house. It ran behind sections of the upstairs walls, including Rachel's bedroom. My stomach dropped. I suddenly remembered the footsteps, the shadow, the banging sounds, the person at the window, all of it. Then I saw the photographs, hundreds of them, neatly organized, years worth. Rachel playing in the yard, Rachel riding her bike, Rachel sitting at the kitchen table, Rachel through her bedroom window, Rachel sleeping, different ages, different years, same subject. The photographs continued right up until the present. Then I found the newest one. It had been printed that morning. The picture showed 5 sleeping girls. Rachel's birthday sleepover, taken from inside her bedroom, taken while we slept. I heard footsteps below me, real footsteps, coming up the staircase. Fast. I ran. I don't remember much after that. Just panic, shouting. Rachel's father sprinting upstairs. Police arriving later that afternoon, and officers searching the house for hours. They never found anyone, but they found enough evidence to know someone had been there. The hidden passage stretched through portions of the walls and attic. Food wrappers, bedding, clothing, photography equipment. Someone had been living inside the house. Not for days, not for weeks, for years. The investigation lasted months. Then it quietly disappeared from public attention. No suspect was ever arrested. Rachel's family moved away shortly afterward. Most people forgot about it. I almost did too, until a year later. That's when the detective called me and showed me the photograph, the one hidden inside Rachel's wall, the one with 6 girls. I counted again. 5 sleeping bags, 5 friends, 5 people invited. Yet there were 6 figures in the picture. The 6th girl wasn't someone police recognized. She wasn't a missing person. She wasn't a friend. Nobody could identify her. But after staring at the photograph for nearly a minute, I noticed something else. Something none of us had caught before. Every girl in the room was asleep. Except one. The 6th girl was awake, looking directly at the camera, as if she knew the person taking the photograph, as if she'd been expecting them. And to this day, nobody has figured out who she was, or how she got into that room. Our next story drifts away from sleepovers and into something far stranger. A quiet internet mystery that slowly turned into a federal investigation. It all started with a simple website and a prediction that should have been impossible. The FBI recovered a prediction from a hidden website that was written 11 years before I ever found the site. The prediction contained my full name. At the time it was written, I was 12 years old. Nobody involved in the investigation has ever explained how that was possible. What bothered them even more was that every other prediction connected to the website eventually came true. The one that mentioned me was the last prediction on the list. At the time, nobody knew that, including me. I was 23 years old when this happened. I worked overnight technical support for a software company in Ohio. The job wasn't difficult, just repetitive. Most nights were spent waiting for tickets while drinking bad coffee and trying to stay awake under fluorescent lights. I lived alone in a small apartment above a laundromat. My only real company was my cat, Olive. The only family I had nearby was my older sister Emma. We talked almost every day. She was the person I called whenever something weird happened. I ended up calling her a lot during those months. It started with a message from a coworker named Trevor. At 2:11 in the morning, my phone buzzed. "Dude, I found something weird." Attached was a link. I ignored it. A minute later, another message appeared. "No, seriously. Look, the site wasn't accessible through a normal browser." Trevor had found it through a forum dedicated to strange internet rabbit holes. The homepage was almost empty. Black background. White text. One sentence. "We know what you'll do next." Underneath sat a search bar. Nothing else. No logo. No menu. No explanation. Trevor and I spent half an hour joking about it. Some weird marketing campaign. Some internet creep trying to scare people. Eventually, I typed my name into the search bar. Nothing happened. No results. No error message. Just silence. I closed the page and forgot about it. 3 days later, I got an email. Subject: Welcome TO Observer. No company name. No signature. No link.